My future mother-in-law invited a fortune teller to dinner to test me, and the woman sprinted out of the apartment the second my fiancé touched her hand. It started like a normal pre-wedding Sunday. I was steaming napkins for the seating mock-up while my fiancé Noah decanted his mom's special occasion, Merlot. His mother, Helena, circled the table with a tape measure like she was prepping an autopsy, not a meal. Tradition matters, she said, lining cutlery with military precision. And clarity matters more. I've asked someone, gifted to join us. Like a planner? I asked. Like a seer, she said, satisfied by the word. She reads people. Noah laughed. Mom. It's harmless, Helena replied. If you're strong together, nothing shakes you. I should have said no. Instead, I folded another napkin and told myself it would make a funny story later. At 6:03, the doorbell rang. The woman who stepped in wore a navy coat still wet from the drizzle, bangles muted under sleeves. She introduced herself as Mira. No scarf over her hair, no crystal ball, just a leather satchel and quick eyes that took the room in once, then again. Shoes off, please, Helena said, as if Mira were a plumber. Mira smiled and toed out of her flats. She didn't look at me first. She looked at Noah's hands as he set down the wine. You're the one tying a knot, she said softly. Then she glanced at Helena and something in her shoulders tightened, like a kite string tugging. We ate. Or, we tried. Helena kept steering questions like a tugboat. Mira, what do you need? Hair? Birth times? A ring? We want to know if this matches. She sifted the air for a word. Stable. Just hands, Mira said. I read the temperature of a room from the pulse of it. She nodded at Noah and me. Together first. My palms were sweaty. He took my right hand, Mira took my left. Her fingers were warmer than mine. Noah grinned like this was camp. Helena hovered, arms folded. Mira closed her eyes. For a moment, the apartment went quiet except for the radiator ticking. Her breathing deepened. I stared at her knuckles, at a tiny crescent scar near her thumb. Her eyelids flickered, 1, 2, and her grip flinched. She let me go so fast my hand dropped to the table with a dull thud. Sorry, she said to me, voice steady but thinner. May I? She reached toward Noah. He cracked a joke, do I need to tip? And held out his hand. When his fingertips brushed her palm, everything in Myra's face changed. Not fear exactly. Recognition, like she'd turned a corner in a familiar neighborhood and found a building that shouldn't exist. She jerked back so hard her chair scraped. The water glass toppled, Helena caught it. Mira stood, fumbling for her flats. I'm sorry, she said again, this time to the room. I can't stay. What is this? Helena demanded, blocking the path between the table and the door. You were paid. I'll transfer your money back, Mira said, already sliding into her shoes without socks. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have come. Mistake how? Helena's voice sharpened. You haven't read anything. Myra's gaze flicked to me, then to Noah, then back to Helena. Some doors you don't open, she said. Even to peek. She reached for the handle. Noah stepped forward, palms out. Hey, if we said something. He touched her wrist, a reflex to slow her. That's when she actually recoiled, a full body shiver like a dog shaking off river water. Don't, she whispered. Not angry, urgent. She twisted free and yanked the door. The hallway air broke in cold and tinny. Wait. Helena snapped. What do you think you've seen? Mira didn't answer. She fled, no theatrics, just flight. The door slammed. The radiator ticked again. The casserole, forgotten, sent up a burnt almond smell from the oven. We stood there, the three of us, like actors after the director yells cut and no one knows where to look. Noah flexed his fingers as if they'd gone numb. I retrieved the fallen napkin and found, near my chair leg, a small thing Mira must have dropped, a folded scrap from some pocket guide, edged in gold foil. It had a single line handwritten on it in tiny, precise letters. If the water tastes sweet, check the pipe. Helena saw it too. She reached. I got there first and slipped it into my dress pocket. Ridiculous, Helena said, clearing plates with brittle, efficient quiet. These people run on suggestion. She yanked the oven door, heat rolled out. We forget dinner. We discuss the honeymoon instead. Noah didn't sit. He went to the sink and scrubbed his hands like he was trying to remove ink. He never does that. Not like that. At 8:11, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text, I'm safe. Don't let him touch the cards again. M. I hadn't seen any cards. The night after the dinner, I couldn't stop replaying the scene, the exact moment when Noah's fingers brushed Myra's hand and she froze like she'd just touched an open flame. Her pupils dilated, her lips parted slightly, and then she was gone, grabbing her shoes and leaving with that strange warning hanging in the air. When the door closed behind her, the apartment seemed to exhale. Helena tried to fill the silence, mumbling something about these people always being dramatic, but there was a tightness around her mouth I hadn't seen before. She busied herself with stacking plates, moving quickly, as if speed could erase what just happened. Later, as Noah drove me back to my place, I noticed he was unusually quiet. He kept one hand on the wheel, the other tapping against his thigh in a restless rhythm. You okay? I asked. Yeah, he said too quickly. Just, weird night, huh? But the muscles in his jaw were working like he was chewing on something he couldn't swallow. 2 days later, the first strange thing happened. I came home early from work to find Noah in the living room, his voice low, urgent, speaking into his phone. He didn't hear me come in. No. I told you, I'm not going back to that, he said sharply. You promised you wouldn't come here. You said it was over. He turned when he heard my keys hit the counter, forcing a smile like he'd just been caught watching something embarrassing. Hey, babe. How was your day? I didn't press him then, part of me didn't want to know. But that evening, as we were eating takeout, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Unknown, we need to talk. Alone. Before I could reply, another message came through. I'm the one from dinner. Don't tell him. The next afternoon, I met Mira at a quiet cafe 3 blocks from my office. She was dressed simply this time, no bangles, no dramatic air, just jeans, a dark sweater, and her hair pulled back. But her eyes, they were the same sharp, assessing ones from Helena's dining table. I shouldn't be here, she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. But you deserve to know what I felt. I leaned forward. What you felt? When I touched him, it was like holding a live wire. Not just danger, history. Something he's carrying, something he hasn't told you. She glanced toward the window, lowering her voice. If you stay close when it comes back for him, it'll take you too. My stomach nodded. What's it? She shook her head. I don't know exactly. But I know enough to run. And just like that, she stood, dropped a few bills on the table, and walked out. That night, Noah slept soundly beside me, his arm heavy across my waist. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, Myra's words looping over and over until they stopped sounding like a warning and started sounding like a countdown. Tomorrow, I decided, would start looking for the truth about the man I was going to marry. The next morning, I woke before Noah. His breathing was steady, his face calm in the soft gray light. It was strange to look at him and wonder how much of him I actually knew. I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake him, and padded into the kitchen. I started with his phone. I hated myself for it, but the way Myra's eyes had locked on mine, urgent, certain, it was enough to outweigh my guilt. His phone was face down on the counter, charging. I tapped the screen. Locked. I tried his birthday. No luck. I'd never noticed before, but the fact that I didn't even know his passcode hit me harder than I expected. If I couldn't get into his phone, I could at least check what I had access to. I opened my laptop and searched his name. It was mostly clean, too clean. A few old social media profiles, some tagged photos from college, but nothing recent except for work-related mentions. Even his LinkedIn was almost bare, just his current job title and the vaguest description imaginable. When I tried searching his name alongside the city we lived in before moving here, one link caught my attention. It was a local news site, 4 years old, with a blurry photo of a police cruiser and the headline, "Altercation at Docks Leaves 2 Hospitalized." My chest tightened. The article was short and vague, mentioning that the police questioned a man in his late 20s, but released him without charges. The man's name wasn't listed. But the address given for the incident was just a few blocks from where Noah used to live. I was still staring at the screen when Noah came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "You're up early," he said, pouring himself coffee. "Couldn't sleep," I said, closing the laptop a little too quickly. Later that afternoon, Helena called. "I need to see you," she said, skipping any greeting. Her voice was low, tight. "Without Noah." I met her at a small bench in the park near her condo. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "You should take what that woman said seriously." I blinked. "Mira? I thought you didn't believe her." Helena's eyes darted toward the jogging path, as if checking we weren't overheard. "I don't believe in fortune tellers. But I do believe in reading a room." And when she touched him, I saw something in her face I've only seen once before, when she read for a woman whose husband disappeared 2 months later. No trace, no answers. Her fingers twisted the strap of her bag. I've always thought Noah's past was complicated. There are things he's never told me. But if she's right, if there's danger coming, you need to decide how close you want to be when it arrives. When I got home, Noah was in the living room, sorting through papers. He looked up and smiled, but I noticed something odd, a small, folded piece of card sitting on the coffee table. Gold-edged. My breath caught. It looked exactly like the scrap Mira had dropped at dinner, the one that read, "If the water tastes sweet, check the pipe." Only this one had different words, written in the same neat, precise hand. "When the shadow comes, don't be standing behind him." Noah followed my gaze. His smile faltered. "Where'd you see that?" I didn't answer. Noah's question hung in the air between us, sharp and demanding. His tone wasn't angry, but it had an edge that made my pulse skip. "I just thought it looked familiar," I said, keeping my voice even. He reached for the card, but I got there first, slipping it into my pocket before his fingers touched it. His eyes followed the movement, then narrowed ever so slightly. "It's just an old thing from work," he said. "Someone left it in my desk." "Someone at work writes cryptic warnings in gold ink?" I asked, trying to sound light, but my words fell flat. Instead of answering, he gathered the rest of the papers and shoved them into a drawer. "You worry too much," he said over his shoulder, and walked into the bedroom. The second the door shut, I pulled out my phone. I took a quick photo of the card and sent it to Mira with a single message. "Do you know what this means?" She didn't respond right away. That night, I pretended to be asleep when Noah came to bed. His breathing was steady, but every so often I heard the faint click of his phone unlocking. I wanted to roll over and watch him, to see if his face gave anything away, but I stayed still. In the morning, Myra's reply was waiting for me, "Yes. And if you have that card, it means they already know where you are." I called her immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. By noon, another strange thing happened. A black SUV I didn't recognize was parked across the street from our building. I noticed it when I was coming back from the store. No one was inside, but the engine was running. I carried the groceries upstairs, trying to convince myself it was nothing, a delivery driver, maybe. But when I looked out the window 20 minutes later, the SUV was still there. That evening, Helena called again. Her voice trembled, and for the first time, she didn't sound like the composed, unshakable woman I'd met. Has anything unusual happened today? I hesitated. Why? Because someone came to my door this morning. They didn't give a name. They just asked when Noah would be home. The back of my neck prickled. What did you tell them? Nothing, she said quickly. I told them I didn't know. But they looked dangerous. Not like debt collectors or salespeople. They were calm. Too calm. When I hung up, I found Noah standing in the hallway, watching me. Who was that? He asked. I lied. Work. His gaze lingered on me a moment too long before he nodded. You'd tell me if something was wrong, right? I smiled faintly, my heart hammering. Of course. But deep down, I already knew something was wrong. And it was getting closer. The next morning, I woke to find Noah already gone. His side of the bed was cold, the sheets neatly pulled up like he'd never slept there. On the kitchen counter sat a single note. Had to run an errand. Don't wait up for me tonight. N. He never left notes. Ever. I poured coffee I didn't drink and sat at the table, staring at the folded scrap from the night before. When the shadow comes, don't be standing behind him. The words had felt cryptic before, now they felt like instructions. Around noon, I called Mira again. This time she answered on the second ring. Where's Noah? She asked immediately, skipping hello. I don't know. He left early. That's good, she said quickly. Listen to me, if anyone comes to the door asking for him, you don't know where he is. Even if they sound polite. Especially if they sound polite. I gripped the phone tighter. What is this about? There was a long pause. There are debts that can't be measured in money. He owes something to people who don't forget. Before I could respond, she hung up. That evening, the SUV returned. I saw it from the balcony just as the streetlights blinked on. This time, someone was inside, a man in a dark coat, leaning back with his face in shadow. I ducked inside before he could look up. At 8:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Noah, home soon. Don't open the door until I'm there. I typed back, why? He didn't answer. 15 minutes later, there was a knock. Not a polite knock. 3 slow, heavy thuds that made the wood tremble. I froze in the hallway, holding my breath. Another knock. Then a man's voice, calm and smooth, we're not here for you. Just tell him we stopped by. I backed away from the door, every muscle tense. When Noah finally came home, he found me in the kitchen, gripping a glass of water like it was the only thing keeping me upright. I told him someone had been at the door. He didn't ask what they looked like. He didn't ask what they said. He just nodded once and muttered, they'll be back. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of the knocks, or the SUV, or even Myra's warning. But because of the way Noah had said it, like it was inevitable. The next morning, Noah acted like nothing happened. He brewed coffee, scrolled his phone, and even asked if I wanted pancakes. I watched him move around the kitchen with the same easy rhythm he always had, but now every gesture felt deliberate, like a performance for my benefit. When he left for work, I waited 10 minutes, then called Helena. They came back last night, I told her. The people who were looking for him. Her breath caught. Did you let them in? No. But they said they weren't here for me. Just to tell him they stopped by. There was a pause, then her voice dropped to almost a whisper. He told you about the docks? I gripped the phone tighter. The docks? I guess not, she murmured. Years ago, he was involved in something down there. Something bad. The police questioned him, but they couldn't make anything stick. I thought it was over. But if they're back, she trailed off, like finishing the sentence might make it real. After we hung up, I went straight to my laptop. I searched again for the article I'd found earlier, Altercation at Docks Leaves 2 Hospitalized. This time, I paid attention to the details I'd skimmed before. 2 men injured, both refusing to name their attacker, the police suspecting the incident was business-related. And buried halfway through the story, a line I hadn't noticed before, witnesses reported seeing a third man leaving the scene in a black SUV. By the time Noah came home that night, I had 100 questions. But when I opened my mouth to speak, I remembered Myra's warning: if you stay close when it comes back for him, it'll take you too. Instead, I asked the safest question I could think of. Are you in trouble? He smiled faintly, not meeting my eyes. Not the kind that matters. Later, when he went to shower, I checked the pocket of the jacket he'd thrown over the chair. Inside, I found an unmarked envelope. It was thick, full of cash. And tucked in with the bills was another gold-edged card. This one read, 3 days. The card sat in my palm like a live coal. 3 days. No context, no signature, just the same precise handwriting Mira had used before. My first thought was to take a photo and send it to her, but when I unlocked my phone, there was already a message waiting. Mira, whatever you find, don't try to fix it. Leave before it happens. She didn't answer when I called. That night, I barely spoke to Noah. I kept glancing at the jacket on the chair, the envelope still inside, wondering if he'd notice it was out of place. He didn't. He just went about his routine, quiet but oddly calm, as if he'd made peace with something I couldn't see. The next morning, the SUV wasn't across the street. It was parked directly under our building. A man I'd never seen before leaned against the hood, sipping coffee from a paper cup. He didn't look up when I left for work, but I could feel his eyes on my back until I turned the corner. At lunch, Helena called again. Her voice was brisk, like she was trying to convince herself she was in control. You need to stay at my place for a few days, she said. If something happens, I can at least make sure you're safe. I almost agreed, but a thought stopped me. If these people wanted Noah, and I was with Helena, they'd come there too. I told her I'd think about it. That evening, Noah didn't come home at his usual time. No note, no text. By 9, I was pacing the apartment, my mind running circles. At 10, there was a knock, softer than before, almost polite. I froze. Another knock, then a folded piece of gold-edged card slid under the door. My hands trembled as I picked it up. 2 days. When Noah finally walked in close to midnight, I asked where he'd been. Taking care of things, he said, brushing past me into the kitchen. I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but all I could think about was the countdown. 2 days until, what? The apartment felt smaller with the card sitting on the counter, its 2 words burning into me, 2 days. I wanted to hide it, tear it up, pretend I'd never seen it, but instead, I left it there. I wanted Noah to notice. To react. To say something. He didn't. He walked past it twice without so much as a glance. The next morning, the SUV was gone, but in its place, a different car idled at the curb, a silver sedan with tinted windows. Same presence, same heavy stillness. I recognized one of the silhouettes inside. The man from the SUV. At 11:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. A number I didn't know. I hesitated, then answered. Are you alone? The voice was low, measured. A man's voice, not Noah's, not anyone I recognized. Who is this? You should tell him to stop running. It's only making it worse. The line went dead before I could respond. At lunch, I finally heard from Mira. A single message: if you're still there when it reaches 0, you won't get to leave. I typed back furiously, what is it? What happens in 2 days? But the message showed as undelivered. When Noah came home that night, he looked different, alert, like a man expecting a knock at any moment. He kissed my cheek, poured himself a drink, and sat on the couch as if nothing in the world was wrong. I saw them again, I said. He didn't look up. I know. That answer, calm, resigned, made my skin prickle. Then tell me what's going on. He sighed, set down his glass. It's old business. I thought it was finished. It's not. What kind of business? I pressed. The corner of his mouth lifted in something that wasn't quite a smile. The kind where you can't make mistakes twice. I stared at him, my pulse loud in my ears. And the cards? 3 days, 2 days, what are they counting down to? They're not for you, he said simply. They're for me. That night, sleep didn't come. Every sound outside, the hum of an engine, footsteps on the sidewalk, made my chest tighten. By morning, the silver sedan was still there. A thin layer of frost coated its roof, proof that whoever was inside hadn't left all night. When I stepped onto the balcony for air, I noticed something tucked under the doorframe. Another gold-edged card. One day, Noah found me holding it. This time, he did look. His expression didn't change, but his knuckles whitened where they gripped his coffee mug. You should go stay with your sister, he said quietly. Just for a few nights. I shook my head. Not until you tell me the truth. He met my eyes, and for a second, I thought he might. But then he said only. It's better if you don't know. And that was when I realized, whatever was coming tomorrow wasn't going to knock. It was going to break the door down. The day began with a stillness that felt wrong, like the world was holding its breath. No silver sedan outside. No SUV. No movement at all. Noah was up before me, already dressed, pacing the living room. He had his phone in one hand, a small duffel bag in the other. You need to leave, he said without preamble. Now. I stood in the doorway, my stomach in knots. Not until you tell me. Please. His voice cracked on the word. I can't protect you if you're here. I didn't move. That's when he came over, took my hand, not gently, and pressed something into it. It was another gold-edged card. The handwriting was the same, but this one had no number. Just a single word, tonight. I whispered, what happens tonight? He let go of my hand. Everything ends. By mid-afternoon, the tension in the air was almost unbearable. I stayed close to the window, scanning the street for any sign of the cars. Around 5, the silver sedan reappeared. This time, there were 2 men standing beside it, talking quietly. When they noticed me at the window, one of them smiled. It wasn't friendly. I grabbed my phone and texted Mira, it's today. What do I do? Her reply came instantly, as if she'd been waiting, don't be there when the sun goes down. Noah left just after 6. He didn't say where he was going, only that he'd handle it. I watched him walk down the street, his shoulders squared like a man going to war. As the light faded, the sedan and its 2 men were still there. They didn't follow him. They stayed. Waiting. At exactly 8:03 p.m., there was a knock at the door. 3 slow, deliberate thuds, the same as before. I didn't answer. Another knock. Louder. Then a voice, last chance. We don't wait past tonight. I backed away from the door, my phone in one hand, Myra's last message flashing in my head. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, from the street below, I heard the sound of an engine roaring to life, and the screech of tires heading in the direction Noah had gone. And I realized, they hadn't been waiting for me. They'd been waiting for him to be alone. I didn't remember deciding to leave. One moment I was frozen in the middle of the apartment, the next I was shoving my phone, wallet, and the stack of gold-edged cards into my bag. Myra's words were loud in my head, don't be there when the sun goes down, and the sun was long gone. I took the back stairs, avoiding the street where the silver sedan had been. The air outside was sharp and cold, but my legs didn't stop moving until I was half a mile away, standing on a dimly lit corner with no plan except to keep breathing. At 9:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered without thinking. Mira? I asked. It's done, a woman's voice said. It was her, but she sounded exhausted. You won't hear from them again. My pulse pounded. Where's Noah? Silence. Then, carefully, you don't need to know that. You just need to move on. The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. I rented a motel room under a different name and sat awake until the first hint of dawn seeped through the curtains. I kept expecting a knock on the door, another card slid under the frame. But none came. By the next afternoon, the street outside our building was empty. No sedan, no SUV. Helena called, her voice shaking when I told her I hadn't seen Noah. She didn't ask questions, just whispered, maybe that's for the best. 3 days later, a plain envelope arrived at the motel's front desk, no return address. Inside was a single photograph, me, taken from a distance, walking out of our apartment the night I left. Beneath it, in that same gold-edged script, was one line. You checked the pipe. Good. I stared at it for a long time before sliding it into the drawer and closing it. I never saw Noah again. No calls, no letters. Sometimes I wonder if he's alive. Sometimes I hope he isn't, because at least then, whatever shadow followed him might finally be gone. But every time I walk past a parked car with tinted windows, I still feel the weight of those cards in my pocket, and I know that somewhere, someone remembers my face. And maybe, just maybe, they're still counting down.